The sky above the alien arena was dark purple, heavy with strange clouds that moved too fast and too slow at the same time. Bright blue lights circled high towers made of silver metal. The air felt cold and thin. Thousands of alien citizens filled the giant seats around the arena. They waited in silence. In the center of the arena, 20 human warriors stood in a straight line. Their hands were not tied, but armed guards surrounded them. The humans were dirty, tired, and wounded from battle. Some had blood on their armor. Some could barely stand. They had been captured only hours ago after a brutal fight. Among them stood the youngest warrior. His name was Arin. He was smaller than the others. His armor was cracked. A cut marked his cheek. His hands shook slightly, but his eyes were steady. He tried to look calm, and even though his heart was beating fast. The alien announcer stepped forward. His voice echoed across the arena like thunder. "Today, Her Highness will choose." The crowd went silent. High above, a golden gate slowly opened. The alien princess entered. She was tall and graceful. Her silver armor shone like light from a star. A long, dark cloak flowed behind her. Her eyes glowed soft blue, but they were sharp and cold. She walked slowly, calmly, like someone who feared nothing. Every alien bowed their heads. The human warriors did not. The princess stopped in front of the line of humans. She studied them one by one. The first warrior was huge, strong, and muscular. He looked ready to fight even now. The princess looked into his eyes. He stared back with anger. She moved on. The second warrior had scars across his face, and he looked fearless. He lifted his chin proudly. She moved on. One by one, she passed them all. The crowd began whispering. Why was she taking so long? Finally, she stopped. Not in front of the strongest, not in front of the tallest. She stopped in front of Aaron, the youngest, the smallest, the most unexpected. Aaron felt her shadow fall over him. He did not look away. His body wanted to step back, but he forced himself to stay still. The princess stared into his eyes. Time felt frozen. Then she slowly lifted her hand. Her finger pointed at him. "He will be mine." The arena exploded with noise. Aliens gasped loudly. Some shouted in shock. Even the alien generals standing near the throne looked confused. The king himself, sitting high above, leaned forward. "This one general asked carefully. He is the weakest." The princess did not look away from Arin. "You see weakness," she said calmly. "I see fire." Arin did not understand her words. He did not understand what was happening. Was she choosing him for execution? For slavery? For experiments? The other human warriors looked at him in disbelief. One whispered, "Why you?" Arin had no answer. The king stood slowly. "Daughter," he said, his voice deep and powerful, "choose wisely. Our enemies approach. We need strength." The princess finally turned toward her father. "And that," she replied, "is exactly why I choose him." Silence again. The king studied Arin carefully. He looked unimpressed. "He will not survive training," the king said. "Then he will die trying," the princess answered. The crowd quieted. The decision was final. 2 alien guards stepped forward. They grabbed Arin's arms. Their grip was strong but not cruel. Arin expected pain, but it did not come. He glanced back at his fellow soldiers. Some nodded at him. Some looked worried. One of them gave him a small, proud smile. Arin tried to stand taller as he was pulled away. As he walked across the arena floor, he heard the princess speak again. "Prepare my ship." The words made the crowd whisper louder. Why take him to the royal ship? Why not the prison camps? Why not the execution chamber? Above the arena, large metal doors opened. A massive royal spacecraft waited, shining in the dark sky like a silent monster. Arin's heart pounded. He had faced alien soldiers. He had faced giant war machines. He had faced death. But this felt different. This felt unknown. As he was led up the ramp of the ship, as he dared to look back one last time, the princess was still watching him, not with anger, not with cruelty, but with interest, almost hope. The doors of the ship slowly closed. Darkness filled the inside corridor. The engines began to hum. Aaron did not know where he was going. He did not know why he was chosen. He did not know if he would live another day. But one thought burned in his mind. If they think I am weak, they will learn. The royal ship lifted into the sky, and somewhere far beyond the clouds, something ancient was watching. Something that feared only one thing: humans. The royal ship moved silently through deep space, leaving the purple skies of the arena world far behind. Inside the ship, everything felt cold and perfect. The walls were smooth silver metal, glowing with soft blue light. These strange symbols moved across glass screens, showing stars and distant planets. Aaron stood in the center of a wide chamber surrounded by tall alien guards. He expected chains. He expected pain. Instead, he was given water and a clean cloth to wipe the blood from his face. The guards did not speak to him, but they did not hurt him either. This confused him more than violence would have. After some time, 2 medical drones entered the room. They floated in the air and scanned his body with thin beams of light. Aaron tried not to move. He remembered stories about alien experiments. He expected sharp tools and cold tables. Instead, one of the drones sprayed a soft mist over his wounds. The pain slowly faded. The cut on his cheek began to close. His broken armor was removed carefully, and new simple clothing was given to him. And it was not royal clothing. It was not prisoner clothing either. It was something in between. That made him uneasy. He did not know what role he was meant to play. Far above him, in a higher chamber of the ship, the alien princess stood in front of a large, transparent wall, watching the stars pass by. An older alien general stepped beside her. His armor was dark and heavy, covered with battle marks. His voice carried concern. He asked her why she had chosen the human boy when there were stronger warriors available. He reminded her that their ancient enemy was moving again in the outer systems. He said this was not the time for strange experiments. The princess listened quietly. She did not show anger. She did not raise her voice. She simply activated a holographic display. The image showed the earlier battle where humans were captured. And the arena had only seen the ending, but this recording showed the full fight. Alien soldiers had attacked a human outpost. Explosions filled the sky. Large alien beasts were released into the battlefield. Most human fighters retreated when they saw the size of those creatures. But one small human did not run. The princess paused the image. There was Aaron, standing in front of a wounded soldier who could not move. Behind him was a massive alien war beast, tall as a building. Aaron's weapon was almost broken. His body was already bleeding, yet he did not step aside. Instead, he shouted something and charged forward. The general watched carefully as the human moved not with perfect skill, but with pure will. He was afraid, yes, but he did not stop. He fought long enough for others to escape. Even when he was knocked down, he crawled back up. The princess turned off the display. "You see strength in muscle," she said calmly. "I see strength in choice. He chose to stand when fear told him to fall." The general remained silent. He had no answer for that. Below, Aaron was finally escorted through the ship's corridors. The halls were wide and tall, built for larger bodies. Strange alien officers walked past him, staring with curiosity. Some looked amused. Some looked doubtful. He heard whispers in a language he did not understand. He knew they were judging him. He kept his back straight. Even if he did not know what was coming, he would not show fear again. He was brought into a circular room with a transparent floor. Beneath it, He could see the stars stretching endlessly below. In the center of the room stood the princess. There were no guards inside. She faced him directly. Now, for the first time, they were alone. Aron's heart beat fast, but he forced himself to meet her glowing blue eyes. She studied him again, but this time not as a ruler choosing a tool. This time it felt more personal. "You stood against death," she said slowly, her voice calm but strong. "Why?" Aron hesitated. He did not understand her language fully, but some words were translated through a small device near his collar. He thought carefully before answering. He said that the soldier behind him had a family. He said that someone had to buy time. He said that fear was normal, but leaving others to die was worse. The princess listened without interruption. There was no laughter in her eyes, no mockery, only thought. She walked slowly around him, observing the small scars on his arms, the way he stood even though he was exhausted. And she then explained something that made his mind spin. Their enemy was not just powerful, it was ancient and intelligent. It studied emotions. It fed on fear and hesitation. Most alien races, including hers, valued survival above all. When the battle turned dark, many chose retreat. Humans, however, were different. They sometimes moved forward when logic said to step back. That unpredictability was dangerous. That unpredictability was powerful. "You are not the strongest," she said, "but you are dangerous." Aron did not know whether that was a compliment or a warning. Suddenly the lights in the chamber dimmed. An alarm echoed softly through the ship. The general's voice came through a hidden speaker, reporting that long-range sensors had detected movement in deep space. The ancient enemy fleet was closer than expected, and the princess's expression did not change, but the air in the room felt heavier. She looked at Aron one more time. "Training begins now," she said. The transparent floor beneath them shifted, revealing a hidden platform rising from below. It was covered in strange machines and glowing rings. Aron realized this was not a prison. It was not a royal chamber either. It was something else entirely. It was preparation. As the ship changed direction and moved toward an uncertain future, Aron understood one thing clearly. He had not been chosen for mercy. He had been chosen for something far more dangerous. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the enemy that feared nothing had just been given a new reason to worry. The training chamber was unlike anything Aron had ever seen before. It was a massive circular room built deep inside the royal ship, surrounded by thick, transparent walls that showed nothing but endless stars. The floor was made of dark metal marked with glowing lines that formed strange patterns. In the center stood several tall pillars connected by beams of light. The air felt heavy even before anything began, as if the room itself was waiting to test him. Alien officers stood behind a secure glass barrier above the chamber, watching silently. The princess stood among them, her hands folded calmly behind her back. She did not look nervous. She looked focused. Aron stepped onto the center platform. He did not fully understand what would happen, but he understood one thing clearly. This was the reason he had been chosen. A cold, mechanical voice echoed through the chamber, announcing the beginning of gravitational increase. At first, nothing changed. Then, slowly, Aron felt a pressure pushing down on his shoulders. It was not painful yet, but it was noticeable. His legs felt heavier. His breathing became slower. He adjusted his stance and clenched his fists. The gravity increased again. This time the pressure doubled. His knees bent slightly. His muscles tightened as he fought to remain standing. Sweat formed on his forehead. He had trained on Earth under normal gravity his entire life. But this was different. This was like carrying invisible weight, crushing every part of his body at once. The alien officers above watched carefully. Some exchanged doubtful looks. One whispered that the human would collapse within minutes. The gravity increased to 3 times Earth's pull. Aron's legs shook violently. He dropped to one knee, his hand hitting the metal floor to stop himself from falling completely. The sound echoed across the chamber. Pain shot through his spine. His arms trembled as if they would break. Every breath felt like pulling air through stone. The system announced that alien soldiers normally trained at this level only after years of preparation. Aaron had not been given years. He had been given minutes. Above, the general turned slightly toward the princess and said that this was enough. He reminded her that humans were physically weaker than their species. The princess did not respond. Her glowing eyes remained locked on Aaron below. On the floor, Aaron's vision blurred for a moment. His body screamed for him to lie down. Every instinct told him to stop. He remembered the arena. He remembered the pointing finger. Then he remembered the wounded soldier behind him during the battle. He clenched his jaw and forced one foot under him. Slowly, painfully, he pushed himself back up to both feet. His body trembled violently, but he stood. A quiet murmur spread among the alien officers. The gravity increased again. Now it was 4 times Earth's gravity. This level crushed him instantly. He fell flat against the metal floor, the air knocked from his lungs. For a moment he could not move at all. The chamber felt like it was trying to bury him alive. His chest burned. His heart pounded wildly. A small line of blood ran from his nose. The training system paused for a moment, scanning his vitals. A warning flashed above the observation deck, showing that his body was under extreme stress. The general shook his head. "He is done," he said quietly. But Aaron was not done. With slow, shaking movements, he pressed his palms against the floor. His arms trembled so badly they looked as if they would snap. His shoulders screamed in pain. His fingers dug into the metal surface as he forced his body upward 1 inch at a time. His breathing was harsh and broken, but it did not stop. His legs slid under him. He pushed again. His body rose halfway before collapsing once more. The metal rang with the impact. Silence filled the chamber. The princess leaned forward slightly. Aaron closed his eyes for just a second. In that darkness, he saw Earth's blue sky. He saw his mother's face. He heard the laughter of his fellow soldiers. He remembered why he had joined the fight in the first place. It was not for glory. It was not for survival alone. It was for others. May that memory burned brighter than the pain. With a final desperate effort, he pushed again. This time, slowly and painfully, he stood. Not straight, not proud, but standing. The system confirmed stability at 4 times gravity. Several alien officers stared in disbelief. Their own warriors often collapsed at this level during early training, yet the smallest human in the arena was still on his feet. The princess finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. "Increase." The chamber shook slightly as the gravity rose once more, 5 times Earth's gravity. Aaron's body did not collapse this time. Instead, he dropped to one knee but caught himself before falling completely. His muscles trembled violently. His vision darkened at the edges. Every cell in his body felt like it was tearing apart. And the training system warned again of critical levels. The general stepped forward urgently, telling the princess that continuing would kill the human. She did not answer immediately. Her eyes studied Aaron carefully. Down below, Aaron lifted his head. Slowly, painfully, he forced himself to stand one more time. His body shook uncontrollably. Blood dripped from his lip. But his eyes were open, and in them was something the aliens rarely saw, not fear, defiance. The chamber fell completely silent. For the first time, some of the alien officers felt something unfamiliar stirring inside them. Respect. The princess finally raised her hand, signaling the system to stop. The gravity returned to normal instantly. Aaron collapsed to the floor, gasping for air, unable to move. Medical drones rushed in to stabilize him. The observation deck remained silent for several long seconds. The general looked at the princess again, but this time his expression had changed. There was no doubt left in his eyes. "You were right," he said quietly. The princess continued watching as the drones carried Aaron away. "No," she replied softly. "This is only the beginning." Outside the ship, far beyond the reach of its sensors, a dark fleet moved silently between stars. The ancient enemy was drawing closer, and somewhere within that fleet, commanders studied reports of the captured human. For the first time in centuries, they adjusted their calculations. Because something unexpected had entered the war, a human who refused to fall. Aaron woke up inside a quiet medical chamber, surrounded by soft white light and low mechanical sounds. His body felt heavy, but the crushing pain from the gravity trial was gone. Transparent tubes carried glowing liquid through the walls, and small machines floated around him, scanning his muscles and bones. He tried to sit up, but a gentle force held him down. A calm voice informed him that his body was repairing faster than expected. That sentence confused him more than anything else. Faster than expected? He closed his eyes for a moment, remembering the pressure that had almost broken him. He remembered standing when he should have fallen. He did not feel strong. He felt lucky. The door to the chamber opened slowly, and the alien princess entered alone. She was not wearing her royal cloak now. Instead, she wore a simpler uniform, still elegant but less ceremonial. She stepped closer to the medical bed and studied the display screens floating above Aaron. The readings showed something unusual. His muscle fibers had torn under extreme gravity, but instead of weakening, they had adapted rapidly. His bone density had increased slightly. His cardiovascular system had adjusted in ways alien scientists did not fully understand. Humans, it seemed, did not just endure stress. They changed because of it. "You should have broken," she said quietly, not as an insult, but as a statement of fact. Most would. Aaron slowly turned his head toward her. His voice was tired, but steady. He told her that on Earth, survival often depended on pushing past limits. Humans trained in deserts, mountains, oceans, and frozen lands. They fought not because they were the strongest species in the universe, but because they learned to survive in difficult places. He did not know why his body changed so quickly, and he only knew that when pain came, humans learned from it. The princess listened carefully. She then activated a large holographic display that filled the room with moving images of deep space. Dark ships appeared on the projection, sharp and terrifying in design. Their structure was not smooth like alien royal ships. It was jagged, almost organic, like living weapons drifting through the void. These were the ancient enemies. They had destroyed entire systems before the princess was even born. Their power did not come only from weapons. It came from something far more dangerous. "They study fear," she explained calmly. "They feed on hesitation. When a civilization begins to doubt itself, they strike. When leaders choose safety over courage, they attack. They do not just conquer worlds. They break them." Aaron watched the images carefully. He saw alien soldiers retreating in old battle recordings. He saw panic spreading across fleets when defeat seemed certain. The enemy ships grew stronger in those moments, almost as if confidence itself weakened their opponents. "Our people value survival above all," the princess continued. "Retreat is seen as wisdom. Caution is praised. But against this enemy, caution becomes weakness." Aaron understood slowly. On Earth, fear existed too. But humans often did something strange when afraid. Sometimes they ran, but sometimes they ran toward danger instead of away from it. Not because it was logical, but because someone had to stand in the way. "That is why you chose me," Aaron said quietly. "Yes," she answered. "You stood when retreat would have been easier. You fought when survival suggested surrender. That choice is rare in our kind." The chamber grew silent for a moment as the hologram shifted to show a projected battlefield. Alien fleets were positioned in defensive formations. The enemy fleet approached in massive numbers. The simulation showed likely outcomes based on current strategy. In nearly every version, alien forces eventually retreated. And when they did, the enemy ships gained power and pressed forward with unstoppable force. Then the princess changed one variable. A single small unit moved forward instead of backward. The simulation shifted dramatically. The enemy formation hesitated for a fraction of a second. That hesitation created a ripple. The ripple created confusion. The confusion created opportunity. "Humans are unpredictable," she said softly. "You are not bound by perfect logic. You act from emotion, loyalty, anger, hope. That chaos is dangerous to our enemy. They cannot calculate it easily." Aaron felt something heavy settle in his chest. He was not chosen to be a royal guard. He was chosen to represent something his species carried naturally. He was chosen because humans did not always follow safe paths. Before he could respond, an urgent signal echoed through the ship. The hologram flickered as an officer's voice filled the chamber. Long-range sensors had confirmed visual contact with the enemy fleet. They were closer than projected. Estimated arrival time was shorter than expected. The princess's expression did not change, but her eyes sharpened. She dismissed the hologram and turned back to Aaron. "There is no more time for gradual preparation," she said. "You will train not only your body but your mind. You must understand our strategies, our weaknesses, and theirs." Aaron slowly sat up as the medical restraints released. His muscles still ached, but strength pulsed beneath the surface. He was not the same human who had stood in the arena days ago. Something had begun to change inside him, not just physically, but mentally. He realized he was no longer simply fighting for Earth. He was standing between two civilizations and an enemy that had destroyed countless others. The princess stepped toward the exit but paused at the doorway. Without turning, she spoke one final sentence. "They have never faced a species that fights hardest when cornered. They believe fear will control you. They are wrong." After she left, Aaron looked out through the transparent wall at the stars beyond. Somewhere in that darkness, the ancient fleet moved closer, confident in its history of victory. It did not know that its calculations were already failing. It did not know that a small human warrior had survived 5 times normal gravity and refused to fall. And it did not know that the greatest danger to a predator is not strength. It is prey that chooses to fight back. The royal ship trembled slightly as it shifted into full battle formation. Outside the wide observation windows, the darkness of space was no longer empty. In the far distance, shapes moved like shadows against the stars. At first, they looked small, almost harmless, but as the ship's sensors zoomed in, their true size became clear. The enemy fleet was massive. Their ships were not smooth or elegant like the alien royal vessels. They were sharp, uneven, and almost alive in appearance. Dim red lights pulsed across their surfaces like slow heartbeats. They moved in perfect formation, silent and patient, as if they had already decided the outcome of the coming battle. Inside the command deck, tension filled the air. Alien officers stood at their stations, studying screens and adjusting defensive shields. The princess stood at the center platform, calm but alert. The king's fleet had arrived to support them, forming a wide defensive wall across the system. Thousands of alien warships powered their weapons, glowing with blue energy. Yet even with this impressive force, something felt uncertain. Many officers remembered the last time they had faced this enemy. They remembered retreat orders. They remembered panic spreading across communication channels. Fear was not spoken aloud, but it existed in quiet glances and tight movements. Aaron stood near the rear of the command deck, wearing upgraded combat armor fitted to his smaller human frame. The alien engineers had modified it quickly, strengthening it without making it too heavy. His body had healed from the gravity trial, but faint scars remained as reminders. He watched the approaching fleet with focused eyes. His heart beat fast, but it was not panic. It was anticipation. He understood now that this was not only their war, it was his war too. The first strike came without warning. A wave of dark energy shot from the enemy formation, slamming into the outer shields of the alien fleet. The impact lit up space with flashes of violent red and blue light. Several smaller alien ships exploded instantly, their debris drifting silently into the void. A shock spread across the command deck. Officers began shouting orders, and defensive cannons fired back in bright beams that crossed space like lines of lightning. The battlefield quickly became a storm of energy and destruction. At first, the alien fleet held its position. Their weapons were powerful and precise. Several enemy ships were damaged and pulled back slightly, but then something subtle began to change. Communication channels picked up increased stress among the outer defense lines. Smaller ships started repositioning defensively instead of offensively. Commanders requested permission to retreat to safer coordinates. The enemy fleet responded instantly. Their ships advanced more aggressively, red lights pulsing faster as if feeding on the hesitation spreading across their opponents. And the princess watched this pattern carefully. She had seen it before. The moment doubt appeared, the enemy pressed harder. She turned her gaze toward Aaron. He saw it too. He could feel the shift in the room. Alien officers were calculating survival, not victory. Without waiting for permission, Aaron stepped forward. He requested deployment to the forward assault wing. Several officers stared at him in disbelief. A human? On the front line of a galactic war? The general hesitated, but the princess gave a small nod. She understood what was happening. If the fleet continued to defend only, the enemy would gain momentum. They needed something unpredictable. Aaron boarded a smaller assault craft along with an elite alien squad. The craft launched from the royal ship at high speed, racing toward the center of the battle, and explosions lit up the darkness around them. Through the cockpit window, Aaron saw destroyed ships drifting lifelessly. He felt a brief wave of fear, but he pushed it aside. Fear was natural. Giving into it was optional. The assault craft broke through the defensive line and entered the chaos between fleets. Enemy drones surrounded them quickly, firing dark energy blasts that shook the hull. The alien pilot maneuvered sharply, but one wing was hit and partially damaged. Alarms blared inside the small craft. The squad leader suggested retreating back to safer space. Aaron shook his head firmly. Retreat now would only strengthen the enemy's push. When the craft reached firing range, Aaron was the first to leap out onto the surface of a damaged enemy cruiser. Magnetic boots locked onto the dark metal hull as enemy drones swarmed toward him. And the alien soldiers followed, surprised by his sudden aggression. Aaron fired his weapon with controlled precision, moving forward instead of backward. He did not wait for perfect formation. He did not hesitate when explosions erupted nearby. His movements were not flawless, but they were bold. Something unexpected happened. The enemy drones paused slightly when faced with direct forward assault. Their formation broke for a fraction of a second. That small delay allowed the alien squad to advance and plant explosive charges on key systems. The cruiser's red lights flickered wildly as internal systems destabilized. Aaron fought through a wave of smaller drones that attempted to overwhelm him. One blast struck his armor, throwing him hard against the hull. Pain shot through his ribs, but he forced himself back up immediately. Inside the command deck of the royal ship, officers watched the live feed from Aaron's suit camera. They saw the human charging forward again and again, even after taking damage. They saw enemy units struggling to predict his next move. For the first time in the battle, the enemy fleet's advance slowed. The explosive charges detonated, tearing through the cruiser's core. The massive enemy ship collapsed inward before breaking apart in a silent explosion. The shock wave rippled through nearby vessels, disrupting their formation. Alien ships behind Aaron seized the opportunity and pushed forward aggressively instead of retreating. The battlefield began to shift. However, The victory came at a cost. Aaron's suit readings showed heavy damage. His oxygen levels were dropping. His left arm responded slowly due to impact trauma. The alien squad signaled immediate extraction, but Aaron remained standing on the broken hull of the destroyed cruiser, staring toward the deeper enemy formation. Even injured, he refused to fall. Back on the royal ship, the princess felt a rare emotion tightening in her chest. Not doubt, not fear. Something else. Concern. The enemy fleet regrouped quickly. Larger warships began powering up heavier weapons aimed directly at the assault wing. The battle was far from over. If anything, it was only escalating. As alien forces advanced with new confidence, one truth became clear across every command channel. The enemy's calculations had shifted. Their attack patterns were no longer perfectly steady. Something had disrupted them. And that something was a human who chose to charge forward when retreat would have been easier. Now the battlefield had changed, but the war was far from finished. After the destruction of the enemy cruiser, both fleets pulled back slightly to reorganize. Debris floated between them like silent ghosts of fallen ships. The alien command deck was no longer filled with quiet doubt. It was filled with movement and sharp commands. Officers who had earlier suggested retreat were now adjusting attack vectors. Something inside them had shifted when they saw the human push forward against impossible odds. Aaron was pulled back to the royal ship by emergency extraction teams. His armor was heavily damaged, cracked across the chest and left shoulder. When the medical team removed his helmet, his face was pale, but his eyes were still awake and alert. He had lost blood. 2 ribs were fractured. His left arm had deep internal bruising. Any normal soldier would have been placed in long-term recovery. The alien medics recommended full rest and isolation. But the enemy fleet did not give them time. Long-range sensors showed a massive energy buildup in the center of the enemy formation. A capital warship, larger than any before seen in this conflict, was moving forward. Its surface pulsed with dark red energy veins. Unlike the other vessels, this one did not hesitate. It did not react to disruption. It advanced steadily, like a predator that had decided to end the hunt. The princess stood at the command platform as reports flooded in. The enemy capital ship was generating a field that interfered with alien shield systems. Several frontline ships began reporting shield instability. If that capital ship reached optimal firing distance, it could break the defensive line completely. The King's fleet signaled possible strategic withdrawal to preserve remaining forces. The word withdrawal spread across the deck like cold air. Aaron, lying on the medical platform nearby, heard it clearly. He forced himself upright despite the pain. The medics protested, but he removed the support lines from his arm and stepped off the platform. His body felt heavy, and sharp pains stabbed through his side with every movement. But he walked toward the main display screen anyway. On the screen, the enemy capital ship loomed like a moving mountain. "They want you to retreat," Aaron said quietly. Several officers turned toward him, surprised that he had left medical care. The general stepped forward, reminding him that this was not a human battlefield. This was a galactic war. A tactical survival mattered. Aaron looked at the screen again and then at the officers. He spoke slowly, carefully choosing his words. He explained that predators chase prey that runs. He explained that hesitation gives strength to those who feed on fear. If they retreated now, the enemy would grow bolder, stronger, faster. He had seen it on the battlefield. The moment they advanced, the enemy paused. The moment they hesitated, the enemy surged. The princess watched him carefully. She could see the pain in his posture. She could also see the fire in his eyes. "What do you suggest?" she asked calmly. Aaron stepped closer to the holographic battlefield map. His hand trembled slightly as he pointed toward a narrow gap forming between 2 advancing enemy wings. It was risky and exposed. And any ship entering that corridor would be vulnerable to heavy crossfire, but if they could strike the capital ship's energy core before it reached full charge, they could destabilize the field, disrupting their shields. "It expects retreat," Aaron said. "It expects defense. It does not expect someone to move straight at it." The general immediately objected. The corridor was a death path. No alien captain would willingly take that route. Casualties would be high. The princess remained silent for several seconds, studying both the map and Aaron's face. She then gave a single command that shocked the entire deck. "Prepare assault formation. We move forward." The fleet responded. Instead of pulling back, alien warships tightened formation and began accelerating directly toward the enemy line. Energy cannons powered to maximum levels. Defensive shields flared brightly. Communication channels filled not with panic, but with focused determination. The enemy capital ship adjusted its weapons, but something subtle changed in its movements. Its firing sequence hesitated slightly as alien ships did the unexpected. They did not scatter. They did not retreat. They charged. Aaron insisted on joining the forward assault vessel despite medical protests. The princess allowed it, but assigned 2 elite alien warriors to remain at his side. As the assault ship entered the narrow corridor between enemy wings, the battle intensified. Explosions erupted around them. Several Allied ships were struck and destroyed. The path was deadly, just as predicted. But they did not turn back. Inside the assault vessel, Aaron felt every impact through the hull. His ribs screamed in pain with each vibration. His vision blurred occasionally, but he remained focused. When the assault ship reached firing range of the capital vessel, boarding pods launched toward its outer armor. Aaron and his team were inside one of them. The pod struck the capital ship's surface with crushing force. The hatch blew open, and they stepped onto the dark metal hull. The surface pulsed beneath their boots like living flesh. Enemy defenders emerged instantly, larger and more heavily armored than before. The alien warriors engaged them in close combat, but the enemy fought with unnatural precision. Aaron moved forward despite his injuries. His movements were slower now, but his mind was sharper. He saw the pattern in the enemy's attacks. They responded to calculated defense. They expected organized formation. So he broke formation deliberately. He charged unpredictably, drawing enemy fire toward himself. One blast hit his damaged armor and knocked him to one knee. Pain exploded through his body. For a brief moment, darkness edged his vision. Then he heard something inside his helmet, not an alarm, his own breathing. Still steady, he forced himself back up again. The alien warriors behind him saw it clearly. A human who should have fallen twice already was still moving forward. That sight did something powerful to them. They pushed harder. They stopped calculating survival and started fighting for victory. Aaron reached the capital ship's exposed energy conduit. With shaking hands, he attached the final destabilizer charge. Enemy forces closed in rapidly. There was no time for safe retreat. And the princess's voice came through his comm system, ordering immediate extraction. Aaron looked at the timer on the charge. There were only seconds left. He smiled faintly, even through pain. He leaped from the hull just as the assault craft swept in for pickup. The moment he was pulled inside, the capital ship erupted in a violent chain reaction. Dark red energy flared uncontrollably across its surface before collapsing inward. The massive vessel tore apart in a blinding explosion that lit the entire battlefield. The shockwave rippled through the enemy fleet, breaking their formation completely. For the first time in recorded history, the ancient enemy began to retreat. On the Royal Command deck, silence filled the room as officers watched the enemy ships pull back. They were not regrouping, they were fleeing. And the princess closed her eyes briefly, not in relief, but in realization. The balance of power had shifted, not because of superior technology, not because of larger fleets, but because one injured human refused to break. And as the enemy fleet disappeared into the darkness of space, one truth became clear across every alien channel. Humans were not the weakest species in the galaxy. They were the most dangerous when cornered. The battlefield slowly grew quiet as the last traces of the enemy fleet vanished into deep space. Wreckage drifted between stars like broken memories of a war that had nearly ended in disaster. The alien fleet did not cheer at first. They simply watched the empty darkness where their ancient enemy had retreated. For centuries, that fleet had never withdrawn. It had only advanced, consumed, and destroyed. Yet now it had turned away. That single fact was heavier than any celebration. Inside the royal command chamber, officers stood in stunned silence. Some replayed battle recordings. Others studied sensor logs, trying to understand what had changed. The answer appeared again and again on their screens. The turning point had not been a new weapon. It had not been reinforcements. It had been a decision. The moment the fleet moved forward instead of backward. The moment one human warrior refused to fall when retreat was expected. Aaron lay in the medical chamber once more, but this time the atmosphere felt different. He was unconscious for several hours after the explosion of the capital ship. His body had reached its limits. The medics worked carefully to repair internal injuries and stabilize his fractured ribs. Alien science was advanced, but even their technology could not erase the cost of what he had endured. When he finally opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was the princess standing quietly beside him. She did not speak immediately. She simply observed him with an expression that was no longer distant or analytical. There was respect in her gaze now, perhaps even something deeper, understanding. "You changed the outcome," she said softly. Aaron's voice was weak but clear. "No, we did." The princess gave a slight nod. That answer confirmed what she had believed from the beginning. Humans did not see victory as personal glory. They saw it as shared survival. That mindset was unfamiliar to many alien leaders, who often valued hierarchy above unity. Outside the medical chamber, the king addressed the fleet. His voice echoed through every ship in the system. And he acknowledged the cost of the battle and honored those who had fallen. Then he did something no alien ruler had done before. He spoke openly about the human warrior who had led the charge. He declared that the galaxy would remember this day as the moment the ancient enemy learned fear. The news spread quickly across allied systems. Reports of the battle traveled through communication networks at incredible speed. Civilizations that had long lived in quiet dread of the ancient fleet began to ask questions. Who was the human? How had such a small species disrupted a force that had dominated for centuries? The answer was simple and difficult at the same time. Humans did not fight only for survival. They fought for each other. When Aaron recovered enough to stand again, he was invited to the royal council chamber. And this room was larger than the arena where he had first been chosen. Massive pillars rose toward a ceiling filled with moving stars projected from real-time galactic data. Alien leaders from different systems appeared as holographic figures around the circular table. For the first time, Aaron was not being observed as a curiosity. He was being heard as an equal. The princess stood beside him as her father spoke. The king admitted that he had doubted the choice at first. He had believed strength was measured in size and technology. He now understood that strength could also be measured in will. He offered Aaron a permanent position within the royal guard, along with full access to alien military knowledge and command authority in future conflicts. It was an honor unlike any other. The chamber fell silent as they waited for Aaron's response. Then he looked around the room at the alien leaders. He thought about Earth. He thought about the soldiers who had stood beside him in the arena. He thought about the families waiting on a planet that did not yet know how close destruction had come. Slowly, he shook his head. "I am not a weapon," he said calmly. "I am a soldier from Earth." He explained that his people needed to know the truth. They needed to prepare. He would not remain as a symbol in an alien empire. He would return home, not as a fighter alone, but as a bridge between civilizations. If this ancient enemy returned stronger, the galaxy would need unity, not hierarchy. The princess studied him carefully. There was no disappointment in her expression. Instead, there was approval. "You choose your own path," she said. "That is why you are dangerous." The king agreed, and he declared that Earth would no longer be viewed as a lesser world. It would be recognized as a strategic ally. Trade routes and shared defense systems would be established. For the first time in history, humans would not stand alone in the galaxy. Days later, a smaller royal escort ship approached Earth's orbit. News of the alien fleet's arrival caused global panic at first, but no weapons were fired. Instead, a single human warrior stepped onto a landing platform under the open sky of his home world. Aaron removed his helmet and looked up at familiar blue clouds. The air felt heavier than alien ships, but it felt right. Behind him, the princess remained inside the ship, watching through the open ramp. Their eyes met one final time before departure. No words were needed. Both understood that this was not the end. It was the beginning of something far greater. As the royal ship lifted back into space, Earth's leaders gathered to hear Aaron's report. Across the galaxy, other civilizations adjusted their calculations. The ancient enemy had retreated once, but it would return. And when it did, it would face something new. Not just alien fleets, not just advanced weapons, but a species that did not break when cornered. Far beyond the stars, deep within the dark territories where the enemy regrouped, their commanders studied battle data from the destroyed capital ship. One conclusion repeated across every analysis. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were resilient. Humans were dangerous. And for the first time in their long history of conquest, the ancient fleet began preparing not to attack, but to survive. Because the galaxy had learned a simple truth. When humans are pushed to the edge, they do not fall quietly. They rise.